Welcome to the Information Commissioner's Office. If you wish to use our Welsh language service, you can do this by calling 0. If you know the extension number of the person you would like to speak to, please press 1. If you would like to hear more about the work of the Information Commissioner's Office or some of our automated frequently asked questions, please press 2. If you are calling to register under the Data Protection Act 1998, renew your registration, or discuss your registration, please press 3. If you would like advice or to discuss a concern under the legislation we regulate,
please hold while we transfer you to a member of our advice team.
Hello, Information Commissioner's Helpline. How can I help you?
Hi. Just before I start, I need to tell you that all calls to and from this number are recorded. Are you okay to carry on?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, by all means, no problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
What it is, at work, we've got, they just put in facial recognition. There was no warning about it. We've had no information packs about it or anything.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, they've not told us on how the data is being protected or saved.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could elaborate on this.
Yeah, certainly. I'll try and give you a little bit more guidance in this case. I think probably the first thing to say is the Data Protection Act doesn't give a specific commentary on this type of technology. Okay, so I think if we bear in mind the Data Protection Act, at the time it was put together, obviously technology's moved on significantly. Okay, but that doesn't mean to say it's not relevant. It is relevant, and there's certainly information here which is going to be useful to you. But what the Data Protection Act effectively does is sets out expectations in the form of 8 principles that talks about how personal information should be handled. Okay, so really the key thing is, whilst it doesn't go into specifics such as facial, recognition software, anything like that, we can interpret the principles to a circumstance, if you like.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so that's kind of the first thing. So we can certainly give you a steer, gives you a bit of guidance there, but I'd say there isn't anything necessarily that talks about that particular technology. So I think the first thing which is probably worthwhile saying, with the Data Protection Act, we've mentioned there's 8 principles that talk about how your information should be handled. Are you familiar with those principles? Does that mean anything to you?
Not really. I haven't really dived into data protection.
That's fine. What I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of give you a bit of a signpost, a bit of information, if that's all right, because I think it's actually really useful to see it, because it helps you link it in a little bit better. And the guidance I'm going to give you now will spin off from this as well. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Do you have access to the internet at the moment?
I'm actually sat looking at your site at the moment.
Perfect. Well, you're one step ahead in that case. That's great. Okay, so hopefully you're on the home page.
I shall be in 1 second.
Okay.
ICO. I'm on the ICO.
Yeah. Okay, so have you got a picture of a keyboard and a mouse at the minute?
I haven't. No, I've got Morrison supermarket chain.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. Right, we're in the right place. That's fine. Okay, can you see the section that says for organisations just above that? It's just in a banner, if you like.
Yep, I've just clicked it.
Okay, all right, that's great. So I know we may not necessarily be talking about an organisation here as such, but this guidance is going to be relevant. I think it just sets it out a little bit clearly. Yeah. So we've got 4 organisations, and you should have another section on that page when you click on that says Guides to the Legislation, and the top heading there says Data Protection. So you might have a picture of the Houses of Parliament on this page.
I have, yeah.
Okay, so just below that picture.
Right, yeah.
Okay, Guides to Legislation, Data Protection.
Yes.
Okay, you can just click on Data Protection, and this is kind of the business end of things, really.
Right.
Okay, so all being well, you've got a list of topics on the left-hand side of your page.
Yes.
Okay, so what it does in a matter of speaking, I suppose, it lists the principles in numerical order. So you've got principles 1 to 6, then you've got a few other topics, then you've got principles 7 and 8 below those.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so those are the 8 principles. Okay.
Yeah.
If we look at the first, okay, which is kind of like your very first building block, there is a requirement to process data fairly and lawfully. Okay.
Yeah.
And if we wonder what that means in practice, because it doesn't mean an awful lot on the face of things, it's pretty much is what it says. So you've got to be fair and transparent about how you handle somebody's data. So you've got to be telling somebody in most cases how you're going to handle their information, because if you're not telling somebody and you're not transparent and open about what you're going to do, how can it be fair?
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, if you look at the aspect in terms of lawful processing of data, what that will talk about more specifically is having a lawful basis, and that could be consent, or it could be, as the Act would describe, as a condition for processing.
Right.
Okay, so consent obviously might be more straightforward in some cases, because you can presumably be told what somebody's going to do with your information. You can be asked, do you consent or don't you consent? And if you consent, well, you're going into it presumably with, a fully informed decision, being aware of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think the other aspect is that sometimes consent isn't always, maybe the most obvious or appropriate thing. Sometimes, if you think about your pay slip, you don't give explicit consent for, say, HR or payroll to pay tax to the Inland Revenue or to deduct national insurance.
Yeah.
It's part and parcel of a contract in most cases. There's an obligation there. So, that will probably come under a condition for processing.
Right.
So we've got this requirement, and if we apply this to your scenario, what we're saying is, well, actually, your data's been captured.
Yeah.
Seemingly, there's no notification. You're not aware that this has been done. You've not been told. So therefore, you're not being asked. You're not given consent.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Is it fair and lawful? What's the basis? If you've not given consent, what is the rationale, and what's the legal basis for processing the information?
Yeah.
Now, that I think is kind of your very first question mark, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's what it centers on.
Of course you can.
I think we've actually got our wires crossed here. What it is, it's for the clocking in machine. Right.
Right.
But they haven't made us, like I said, they didn't give us any information whatsoever about it.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Yeah. Well, I think it still applies.
Right.
I think it still applies because it's capturing personal data.
Yeah.
So if that data identifies an individual, which it would do, then this applies. So if that's going to happen, the spin-off from this, if we kind of look at the other aspects of those principles, is what's the information being used for?
Yeah.
Is it excessive?
Yeah.
How long has it been retained for? So if there's an image of somebody, does there need to be an image? What we're trying to achieve by capturing it? Are we capturing more information than we need? What's the purpose?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So these are kind of questions, and I'm not saying that there is a breach. There may not be, but these are the questions I think which are relevant, and you probably need to understand what the answer is to these to understand whether you feel that there is a breach.
Yeah.
So I think, is it fair and lawful? We don't necessarily know. We can't assume that we know why somebody's doing this, whether there's concern, whether there's a lawful basis. There may be a lawful basis. There may be a condition for processing, which the organisation will refer to and say, this is why we're doing it. But that's just one aspect.
Yeah.
Is it excessive? Is it deemed intrusive?
Yeah.
Okay, so these are other aspects. If information that's going to be held is excessive, that in itself could be a breach of the Act.
Right.
So, it's probably not an easy question to give a straight answer to. What we can do is illustrate the areas where there may be concerns.
Right.
And, kind of steer you to asking those questions, because what our position would be as a regulator is that we want to make sure that your information rights and your privacy rights are upheld.
Yes.
So we would say, look, if you've got a concern, raise it with the organisation, because they're the best placed people to justify what they're doing. And if their explanation doesn't cut the mustard, if that doesn't allay your concerns, if you feel, actually, no, I still think that this goes against what should be happening, then you can raise that with us formally and we can look to undertake an assessment.
Yeah. See, I have Yeah.
What I'm going to do, there's a bit more guidance which I think might be useful to you in this case. So I think from the data protection principles, I think we've identified the areas there which I would give consideration to.
Yeah. Well, I can always rewind this and re-listen.
So back on the website, we've got into the section for organisations.
Yeah.
Could you just go to the section for the public as well? Would that be possible?
Right. For the public, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now, this is geared up slightly differently. Okay, so you can go into any bit of the website, but this just is I think is relevant as well. The page that you come to is pretty much split into two. On the right-hand side of the page, you've got advice, and you've got a number of circles with arrows in.
Yes.
Okay, on the second column, on second list, if you like, second from bottom, there's one that says employment.
Yep.
Can we just click on that?
Yep.
Okay, right. So, what we've got here is a bit of guidance here, because there's a bit of a crossover. We can't advise you about employment rights, but we can advise you about data protection issues. Okay. So, we've put together a bit of guidance in terms of employment issues. So, one of the aspects, and I'm not saying that this fits exactly, but I think there may be some considerations here which might still be relevant to your concern. So you've got some headings such as references, seen email, and so on. But just before you get to the bottom, the last one says, can my employer monitor my work using CCTV or tracking devices?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is provided they make you aware of it.
Yeah.
Although in certain circumstances they may not have to tell you. Now, if you can relate that to your situation, they're capturing an image. But what you're saying is they've not told us. They're not told us about this.
Yeah.
So, that isn't massively dissimilar, but the guidance I wanted to kind of steer you to is the one at the bottom, the Employment Practices Code. So there's a link to a booklet.
Employment Practices. Stop.
It's just at the bottom of the page, just a link below that.
Oh, right, yeah. Quick guide. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Okay. So if you just click on that, you get a booklet. Now, I suppose it's intended for organisations, really, but it's equally as useful, I think, to you in this case.
Yeah.
Because what it does, it talks about some, fairly common questions that we get. And basically, it's monitoring, it's, collecting information at work, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What do I want to do if I collect, there's a section on there, page 19. If I want to collect or use information about my workers' health, what must I do?
Yeah.
So this kind of reiterates the message that these principles are giving. You've got to have good reasons. You've got to have justification. For doing this, you can't just do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
You've got to bear this in mind. So that might be useful to you in terms of understanding what the guidance is that we give to organisations about the expectations we have of them in a data protection sense.
Yeah, I understand.
So really, for me, I think the question I would be asking if it was, me in that situation is, look, I've got concerns about what you're doing and whether this complies with the Data Protection Act or whether it breaches my privacy rights.
Yeah.
I think the concern that you've expressed to me is that you don't feel that you've been communicated to, that you haven't been given this fair and lawful processing. That's, as I say, kind of a double-edged sword because it may be lawful, they may feel they have a reason to do it, but there's no consent, it's not been explained to you, and so on and so on. We wouldn't be able to form an official view without undertaking, I suppose, more research into it, so we need to undertake an assessment. But to get to that stage, by the sounds of things, you're doing the right thing, which is raise the concern with the organisation, express what your concerns are, invite them to respond to you, give them 28 days to respond to those concerns. But if after the 28 days those concerns remain, you have the concern that actually I've had an explanation, but I still feel that my rights are being breached or that, it's kind of crossing the line, you can raise that concern formally with us and we can look to undertake an assessment and see what our view would be in those circumstances.
Right.
Is that useful? Is that helpful?
Yeah, very, very useful, yeah.
Okay. I say it's difficult to give a definitive answer because we can only kind of, we've got to be mindful that we don't know both sides of the story and what the justification is.
Yeah.
But those would be the obvious questions from the situation you've described to me, I think.
Yeah. How would I know if they've actually got an ICO certificate?
Very straightforward, that one. That's one I can give you a straight answer to. There's a public register on that website.
Ah, right.
So if you go to the home page,
Yes.
you've got the section. It's kind of it's on the right hand side, but above the organisations bit. It's on the right hand side. You've got 3 coloured boxes, I think. And don't quote me because I'm colourblind. So apologies if this is wrong. I think you got yellow, orange, and blue.
Yeah.
Search the register in blue.
Yeah. Got it.
And you can just click on there. I'd probably be inclined to say just do a couple of searches, because when somebody registers, you may register, depends on the organisation, they may have different addresses registered, so the name might be your best bet. So just put maybe part of the name in, and just search there. You might end up with multiple results, but if you do, you can just click on the one that you think is relevant, and it'll tell you what the registration is and when it expires and so on and so on.
Right, I've just typed it in now. Just see if it's come up.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, it's 31st of October 2012 expires.
Right.
30th of October it expires.
I mean, I would be inclined to. I mean, it's probably worthwhile saying, and I know you haven't really asked this question, but just because an organisation registers doesn't mean to say that ensures that they're compliant.
Right.
Registering with the Information Commissioner's Office is a requirement of the Act in many cases.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean to say that we vetted these organisations to say that their practices are compliant. It's not that. It doesn't have that. That isn't the case. That isn't the purpose of the register. So the idea is you register because they're processing personal data.
Yeah.
You may say, but actually, if an organisation is bona fide, then they take their obligation seriously, and then registering is a positive sign, and that may be true. That may be true, but the bottom line is, just because somebody's registered, they're not approved. We don't say their actions are compliant. We don't say that they're adhering to the Act. We don't know. So, I wouldn't, whether they're registered or not doesn't really change the fact whether you have a data protection concern or not, really.
Yeah, I understand that. How would I go about getting them vetted?
Well, you wouldn't be able to do that necessarily. What would happen is, if you were to raise a concern with us, then our obligation under the requirement of the Act is to conduct an assessment. So we would do that, and we would issue our findings in your case. Yeah. In a wider sense, I suppose our role as a regulator would be that if we've got concerns or repeated concerns about an organisation and their practices, then it may well be that we decide we want to take some sort of action. That is obviously harder to say. We couldn't really be drawn on that because, that would be information I wouldn't necessarily be privy to. It would depend on, a number of factors there, but, that would be something we would need to look at as a regulator, I suspect.
Yeah, I understand that. So, on a final note, how long should I give this? Because obviously they'd give me till 10 p.m. tonight to give my medical records, and saying a disciplinary from that, which could lead to dismissal. And they've not really mentioned, since I've said I didn't want to do the facial recognition. They've not really mentioned it since. It's just that I were pissing HR off. Sorry about the language.
No, you're okay. No problem. I mean, from a procedural point of view for us in raising a concern about the way data has been handled, it's 28 days. So our position would be that the concern should be raised in writing, and you're allowed 28 days for a response.
Right.
I'm mindful that this is only part of the issue there. It may be that obviously you need a bit of guidance in terms of employment rights, and that's not something we can give you because obviously it's not our area. But from the data aspect point of view, then it's 28 days. Raise it in writing and allow them 28 days, and then you can raise a concern with us.
Yeah, right. You're actually number 2 on my list. I've already done ACA.
Right. Well, hopefully by putting everything together, it'll kind of put you in a better position in that case.
Yeah. Okay then. Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you. Bye bye now.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.